I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up.
Welcome, everybody. Here we are. Once I remove the cover, this is Team Rabbit Hole Edition 311 with miryamlev, the Scarlet Code. Welcome, Miryam. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone in chat.
My Sicilian friend, this is funny because I know her not in a professional context, so this should be interesting to see how I roll. But yeah, miryamlev, episode 311, interesting band, 311. The Scarlet Code, Alchemist, Globetrotter, Disruptor, Taurus. Join the team as we get to know Miryam, an Italian mystic and poetess who helps others find the codes and see the light one bite at a time. So, Miryam, before we get started and talk about how I fumbled upon you one day digitally or whatever, we pull cards on this podcast, and the card I pulled, and it's funny because I forget you're a Virgo moon, which makes a lot of sense now that I think about it.
I forgot you were just gonna spill like my.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you your birth time and stuff like that, your age. But anyway, we got the Queen of Swords, and I don't know if y'all could see it. It's okay if you can't, but there's a owl, and it's like the Ice Queen kind of. Basically, it's the watery part of air. It's the feminine part of the mind. This says, oh my God, I can't read and look at this. Using the power, it says, I serve a noble cause, using the power of nature to enhance your lifestyle, like smoking cannabis and stuff. A brilliant mind, penetrating intelligence, serving a noble cause, very Virgo moon, and well-articulated, outspoken, a wise guide. So I'm wondering if there's anything for you that syncs or resonates with the Queen of Swords. Fangs. I'll probably be calling her Fangs from now on. Everybody don't call her that, but Miryam, I don't know her by Miryam so much. I know her by my nickname for her, Fangs. Fangs, so anything resonate with that?
I would say so. Good evening, everybody, and I'm so grateful to be here. It's been a long time coming, I would say. We've been trying for the last 4 years almost.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, you, like I said, you do have a Virgo moon, so service and serving a noble cause, using your mind.
Yes.
I think your Venus is in Gemini, so you do love thinking and playing and being, curious. So hopefully, I keep it together because I know that sometimes I use pejoratives in a funny way, and you don't like that, so I've got to keep my language in check. So the Queen of Swords is on deck already. All right. So long story short, I don't even know how. I think I asked you to come on the podcast like 4 years ago.
4 years. I was in Mexico, so I would say it's about that time. Brother Raphael, I'm gonna join you right now.
Cheers to that.
Holy Communion.
Yeah, I'm there in spirit.
I'm glad that this is like relaxed, like kind of your own boudoir kind of thing. I like it.
Yeah. Hopefully, I mean, yes. Hopefully you enjoy. Puff for me. Basically, a few years ago, I was doing podcasts with Raphael and trying to find guests, and I don't even know how I stumbled upon you, but I was like, oh, it seems like you're doing interesting stuff. Do you want to come on the podcast? And I think we just started geeking out because I think right around that time I went through a big breakup, and the podcast kind of just fizzled for like a year or so, but we still talked and geeked out. And I'd talk about your chart, and we're friends basically through pen pals, I guess you could say, digital pen pals. We've never met.
I would say so. We never met.
Yeah. Anytime I get the travel bug, she's always like, "Come to Thailand, come to Mexico, come to Australia," and I'm like, "Oh my God." So anyway, that's how we met. I know a little about your story, but I don't know all the ins and outs. So I know you're Sicilian. Start off wherever you want with it, and we can kind of catch up to the present day.
All right. So I would say I'm Sicilian. I'm not Italian. That's for sure.
That's a distinction.
And it is quite a distinction.
What is that distinction? I just have to know.
Well, Italy came about quite recently, I would say. We actually, the day after my birthday, we have the Liberation Day from the monarchy. hence, the institutionalization of the fallen government of Babylon, right? And unifying the lands of the heathens. Yeah. And I went to Rumbles. I went to Jesuit school, Raphael.
Oh, snap.
So, snap. So I totally resonate with that. I've been introduced at a very early age, out of my own request, very adamantly requesting to my mother to send me to school because I was too bored of playing with Legos, in kindy. And I was 4 instead of 6. And I spent up until 8th grade at Jesuit school. Not because they were enforcing onto me any like religious view or anything, but my own mother and went to the same school. It was the most protected environment, compared to the public environments out here. I would say I'm grateful because that began seriously like my training and my. I'm not going to call it awakening, like I'm not here to talk about awakening with you guys, but I would say more awareness of myself in time and space and what the people around me, what the fuck were they talking about? It's like they were teaching me the Roman canon. They were grooming me, of course, and most of them probably have not even an idea that that's what they're doing. A lot of these people is good people. I just want to break an arrow, before beginning too heavily.
No rumors are spreading because it's always the running joke, but I didn't actually go to a Jesuit school. They only always claim in history, if you can believe it, that the school I went to was one of the first secondaries or high education schools in Vienna and was initially founded, God knows what, by the Jesuits. And then when I went there, I guess officially about 100 years earlier or 150 years, it was taken over by the, I want to say, Dominican, or maybe I'm saying this wrong now, but some other order. And then it was secularized and, humanized. However, still, it's a humanistic school. And humanism is very closely tied to the Jesuits, actually.
That's how they sell my school. They sell it as a
yeah.
humanistic school. This is literally the
So it's a public school, and we had no monks or whatever running around, and I did never catch anybody like with that inclination. I didn't even attend religious studies because I was non-denominational, and back then you could still basically go to the coffee shop during that hour, which I greatly enjoyed. But so I just want to ask you, you actually had like real like priests and monks at your school teaching?
My mom did. So my mom did grade 10, 11, no, wait, grade 7, 8, and then high school, which for us is like 5 years. We don't have college. And then there's uni directly. And so she did high school and the middle school there. And she had some priests that were still teaching. I was already like 2 generations after. I didn't have anybody besides the priest. There was of course a priest, and we had like an old church, definitely with treasures for sure. But at the age of 7, I started calling bullshit on the Catholic Church. I will never forget the moment when I was in the study with my father and he was like forcing me to study history. I was always really, really reluctant to like accept what they were telling me that was true. There was something that wasn't feeling right, and he was telling me about Constantine. That was the lesson that day. And the lesson was the Council of Nicaea. And at that point I stopped my father and I said, so it is made up. And he said, well, you could put it like that. In ways, yes, it is. And I said, so he pretended, like, of course, he pretended we know it, but for whoever is listening, they
so people
pretend.
know, the Council of Nicaea is where they kind
yeah.
of canonized the Bible. And a lot of things happened. It was
Well,
like an editing.
but
situation.
like I didn't want to like begin and jump into the Torah and the Septuagint straight away. Like I really wanted to ease ourselves like with some more light and whatever before that. But yeah, definitely.
So
But
your
a lot
dad,
of what was like shared to us at the Jesuit school was the Roman canon and the new Evangelios, like Matt, Mark, and Luke, and
New Testament.
yeah. From the Old Testament, there will be like inserts for like school recitals or whatever, but like probably every couple of days, we would go into the church and we would have to like sing the songs that they were teaching us, and there was one in particular I always remember. It was like "Slave for Love." It's like I'm 5 years old and I'm singing, "In a night drenched in sweat, on the boat amidst the sea, and a light that whitens, and flashes, and my nets are empty, and then and I'm basically becoming a slave for love, and it's like, what is happening here? I was seriously asking myself. I'm like, besides the fact that we were diversely concerned because of our pitches and so forth, but because they were making us sing different things, and I don't know, "Oh Happy Days" or whatever, but I was like seriously wondering, what are these people about? Like, what are we doing here? Why are they telling me all of these things? And you know how it goes.
Culture is one hell of a drug. I mean, in a sense, it's unavoidable. It's like a petri dish we all grow in. So whether you're in East Europe and you're being Buddhist, I mean, nobody's, Hindus have yoga and all this stuff. Every culture is growing some kind of thing, and typically the social norms, the values, whatever, are what are kind of inculcated. It gets tricky because I don't know. I mean, Raphael knows much more about Jesuits than I do. I was always under the impression they were kind of doing the Star Wars thing with like the Jedi and just trying to like protect information and pass it down, or whatever. Not saying it's true or false information, just kind of keeping our culture intact and then being like, yes, indoctrinate the children. But in a, I mean, I guess in the devil's advocate sense, it's like there's no way like everybody pops out on this plane of existence and has to be raised. Even Mowgli in the Jungle Book had Baloo teaching him how to fucking find honey and all this stuff. So it's like
that was fun.
Yeah, I love Disney. Even though that's like a mind fuck and probably a psyop in itself. Anyway, so what was your dad's reaction? I mean, obviously you've always had this kind of inclination to do it yourself and figure it out for yourself. You do have a Mars, I think, in 12th house and Chiron in 12th house Cancer. So it's like your wound is with the spiritual nurturing, and
He knows better than me my chart, guys. Like
I'm looking at it.
I sometimes I don't know about it. Yeah, but like I ask you because you know better than me.
Right.
It's not my language. I do recognize patterns, but like I have a different language. Well, my father never really imposed anything onto me, not even my mother, to be honest. And they've always like asked me my opinion. They've always encouraged me to think for myself. They've always encouraged me,
You're an only
observe.
child, right?
And I'm a solo child. Yeah. There's been two losses before, and so miracle baby and all of that, premature child and so forth.
I didn't know you were preemie.
Yeah, 7 months. Yeah.
Damn. All right, so you were kind of bucking the system right from the get-go. I mean, we don't have to hang out in your early childhood too long, but I'm just curious. Basically, you're saying it was pretty.
There was a lot of
chill.
culture in the house,
right.
Like we come from a house of cultures. It's like there's of course encyclopedias everywhere and books and I had access to all sorts of arts from very young age and then after at high school, I did classical studies. So we have, like Latin, ancient Greek, and Koine Greek as well. And
little student. Were you attracted to anything out of the gate? Like, were you like, oh, I like mysticism or I like history?
Just briefly, the ancient Greek you learned at home or in school? Because the humanist school, okay. So, but you elected to learn it because I could have learned it, but since we already had
I chose it myself.
We had 6 years of Latin, and then we had 2 foreign languages, which are, I would say, useful, like English and French. And because I was in French class, I could have chosen not to learn more English, but rather switch to ancient Greek. And I was like,
Why
well,
do that?
English I have some
Precisely.
relationship and the usefulness for, and already Latin was blowing my mind. Although I recently heard that Romanian actually is the closest to Latin, both in terms of some words and also in terms of grammar. And the grammar was what always tripped me over in Latin, and the fact that I couldn't really speak to anybody. So I never
Right.
even dreamed of taking ancient Greek. But why did you choose that?
Well, believe it or not, in Italy, it is public education. It is accessible to everybody, and you either choose classical studies or scientific studies. I'm not too bad with math, to be honest, if I really apply myself. But I didn't want to study trigonometry and like, I wanted to study literature better, or languages and so forth. And why Greek? Well, Greek is majestic. Greek is one of the greatest inheritances that we have. I am seriously,
You're into
frustrated.
Sophia.
I'm definitely into Sophia, yes,
Yeah.
and I'm frustrated, at the altar of the divine, indeed, like with all myself. But I'm seriously grateful for the blessing that I had to receive such, education and be able to have such training. Because I mean, I can consider myself a classicist, even though I never went into like classical university, but I still use the tools that I've received, and probably not at the best of my scholarship, activity, but I'm floored with gratitude. It's like everything that has happened and has unfurled in my life has been so immaculate, and this has lifted such a heavy weight that I probably wouldn't have been able to like lift as an adult right now, like starting in my 30s to begin, to unravel language. Like, I mean, it's doable, but like, we
Well, you're
gotta
built
do
for it.
stuff. And
You got a Virgo moon and a Venus in Gemini, so it's like you're good with understanding
I would
the
say
word,
so.
basically.
I
The
would say so.
language. So you said you didn't go to university. How did you? So you popped out of school and you dropped the Catholic Jesuit school dress or whatever, and then you said, "Hello, world." What happened?
No. My high school wasn't Jesuit.
Okay.
My high school was public,
Normal.
classical
Yeah.
study, but built, like funded and named after Francesco Mauroligo, who was, a really, really important worldwide, philosopher and historian and traveler and so forth. And then my dream, at least at that time, and still is, but like I can do it without having a degree in it, was architecture. And I signed up, I was really close to go, and then, life happens, things happen, and a new path opened up. And off I went.
Where did you
So
go first? I think you've traveled quite a bit.
I took a couple of years. I was in real estate, like property manager, and I mean, I still am registered, and I still do transactions in Italy, if in case anybody wants to buy a house in Italy. And then I went to Australia.
Okay.
And there my travels
East Coast,
around,
right?
mostly around Asia began, and
She's been to Bali.
I've been also to Bali, amongst many other places.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just to like finish and touch a little, not finish, because like it's pillar of, I would say, our conversation today, about Greek, because through Greek, and I give thanks and I give a shout out to my professor, Antonino Ponzio. He's, majestic, seriously, a brain like I've never met before. Language cannot hide anything, and intentionally doesn't hide anything. And so through language, you can grasp the level of embodiment, of spirituality, of cleanliness, of consciousness, of, emotional intelligence, and all of the technology, you know, and I'm not talking about just like analog and tech, but like bio, you know, intelligence that we have, and it's just, it's impossible to hide, because when you look at Greek, which is obvious, like for who studied, you know, classical studies, you can know where those letters and those things come from, back to linear A, linear B, you know, and so like, and through time, if you see an hexagram or diameter, like you know when that was written. So unmistakably, you would say that's 5th century, and that's like 2nd, and that's, you know, you cannot hide that, because language evolves as the collective and the society does through time and space, right? And so the biggest lie that still most of the, you know, Middle Earth is still accepting, and that has multidimensional ripples indeed, is to accept that the original scriptures was Hebrew, and that's a fucking lie. Hebrew is a, you know, it was a not that used anymore language, and it wasn't that ancient anyways. It's like 7,000 words. Are you joking me? Are you joking? Like, and the entire academy just shutting their mouths in shame. So I didn't want to start off like this, guys, but, you know, Queen of Swords,
so
here
then-
we are. It's
Here
like,
we are. She does.
you know,
Since you're mentioning it, of course,
You know.
Mephistopheles is raving for you. What I will
Thank you,
say,
Mephistopheles.
and I'll only point it out briefly, I put the link in the chat a little bit earlier to anybody who wants to know. So, because from the information that I gathered is that it may actually be that both what we call ancient Greek, also Hebrew, especially modern, and the backdated version, as you correctly pointed out, and Latin may all have been more or less simultaneously manufactured by the Jesuits not too long ago. But you know, I don't want to throw you off completely now.
No, that's perfect.
And I
I'm
certainly
so
appreciate,
grateful.
you know, anybody who is, how should I say, knows how to speak those things, to decode old things and so on. But it very much seems, from everything I know through David Jung Jr. and also Anatoly Fomenko, the Russian professor,
I love
that
him.
much of the mainstream history has been played around with, and potentially many things have been backdated. And to my understanding, this would include ancient Greek, and ancient Greece, but also because there is certain books and so on where then you very clearly have those side by side. And since you know, and since I know, what is curious, who is really teaching Latin and ancient
We're
Greek?
gonna get in. We're gonna get into that. We're gonna get
It
into
is
that.
Jesuit, however, affiliated schools in name or whatever else. So that is very interesting to me.
Well, like Wittgenstein, a German philosopher, was kind of like, you know, language changes. So like when we say software, or not software, hardware, like 100 years ago, that would have been nuts and bolts exclusively. And obviously when we say hardware now, it means computer parts as well as nuts and bolts. So language is this very interesting concept. I mean, it depends on who. It's always evolving, it seems. Different kind of. It's almost like there's so many ways to look at language. Like Terence McKenna thought it was a virus from space. Basically, Plato was all about, like, I think it was Plato, might have been Socrates, but one of them was like, don't write shit down. Like, it'll.
Don't get me started with Plato.
Okay, well, talk about however you want. I'm just kind of rambling.
I was just like
stuff.
quickly like reading some comments. I was like, oh, I didn't notice there was this over here.
Do you know much about Tartarian Empire stuff? That's Raphael's shtick more than mine, but someone's asking about that in Sicily.
I'm seeing that. Well, I mean, I would say the Tartar wasn't the oldest that everybody's trying to refer us to with Tartaria, and there was definitely a Tartarian Empire. But I really feel this as just like a distraction from what actually, you know, can deserve more, a little bit our attention. But there's definitely ancient buildings here, and you know, all sorts of like engravings, like the headless man, right? Like the helmet and Green Man and so many. Like we've been this land has been dominated by everybody. But without getting too much off track, I just want to like make a distinction. Everybody says that the Septuagint is in Koine Greek. And I would say yes and no, because that was already higher than the Koine Greek. And so there's Koine Greek, and then there's like the earlier stages of Koine Greek in which the Bible was, which, you know, the Torah, or whatever, the Septuagint, not the Torah, was written. And you can see because of the language that is used, and you cannot hide that. But the main trick is, you know, and once again, I feel that from my like most sincere divine feminine heart, you know, and womb and consciousness and spirit, I feel indignation because of the willing, intentional, just, you know, coverage of the main truths which are connected to the text. And it's like, I don't want to come across like an academic. Once again, I'm not an academic. I'm a, you know,
You're a researcher.
I'm a baby classicist that is kept on being a classicist on her own. But I would love one day, you know, to speak with academics if they would ever dare, because the translations that everybody's reading and purchasing, because these books are definitely less than the Ethiopian, of course, but they're all mistranslations of something else. If you're translating from the original Hebrew, bullshit. Hebrew comes from Egyptian. You know, a kid could see that, you know. I feel offended. Because like I travel the world and I see different levels of intelligence, but it's like amongst all of us that are like privileged to have received an education, you know, and it doesn't matter who paid for it or who organized it. Anyways, like that puts us in a critical mind place where we can like, okay, I'm gonna be fucking honest with myself.
Just very briefly, the problem is for most people it actually doesn't. Although they claim, and even in my school, that's what they bannered themselves with. And yes, we encourage critical thinking. And then at the end of the day, you find yourself in the classroom and you're like, oh, damn, it looks like I'm pretty much the only one who's taking that seriously.
But like, because this is so multi-layered, but this is pivotal to understand why the architectures that are in place, that they're all the fallen design and matrix, you know, and reverted solar matrix, is like, it's connected to the word and it's connected to the truth and hidden in the lie in plain sight, but plain sight for who is illiterate. If you are an illiterate and you're lost at sea because you don't even know what kind of, you know, laws are going around, and whoever gets the reference gets it. Otherwise, you know, you're lost. You know, look it up. The point is, the truth that is written in the Septuagint is so disgusting, and it's so heartbreaking, and it's so appalling, and it's so disgusting. Once again, it's like, it's just, and to see how many genuine hearts and genuine faithful people that actually have the seed and good quality and quantity of faith, you know, in their hearts and in their field and in their home, and you know, and at the same time they're binded to the shackles of fallen, you know, black spells, you know. And so, as you said, yes, I'm not a healer, I'm a disruptor of false architectures. This is what's up, mama's in town, like we're fucking doing this, you know. And the thing is, I will not deny, because I grew up with indeed a Catholic education, right? Nobody was really, really Catholic in my family. Pay attention. But the spirit of the presence of Sophia, of the great mother, of you know, of the divine, and the divine masculine indeed was present in the house, yes. But that was not because of the Catholic understanding, even though there are beautiful truths and codes that are, possible to be delivered, but it is the book of good and evil. It's not just a book of good. It's a book of spells, and for years, my dear people, beloved brothers and sisters, I have traveled the world and searched through like ancient books and things and demonology indeed as well. And I swear to you, precisely line by line, but we're talking about ancient stuff, in other languages, in other stuff, like line by line, way before that these things were translated like that, and way before, King James, and way before yada yada. And if you take the truth, and I'm not going to tell you directly, maybe not right now, like we're going to talk about something else and lighten it up a little bit, but I invite you to search and read the translation of the Septuagint, because the truth must be revealed to you and is accessible to you. And whoever you call Jesus is not the true person. And we're talking about pirates here, and we're talking about leistes, and we're talking about, we're talking about things that are seriously bone shaking. We're talking about things that are as ancient and even before of the original rites of Artemis, And so this is the reckoning. This is happening. Like, I am so thrilled and excited, everybody, for, eventually the fall of the Catholic Church, which is happening. But the truth must be told. All of this has been built upon multidimensional siphoning and drugging, and molesting, young children. And this has to be exposed, in various ways. Rant ended, I promise.
No, you're cool. Microphone/joint on fire. So I mean, obviously there's an American Pope now. I'm not Catholic personally, but as soon as that got announced, I was like, this seems like an inside deal. Like, what the actual fuck?
I'm curious, Miryam, are you familiar with Kevin Annett? He's someone I'm sometimes listening to. He was a priest initially in the US. Then he realized there's all these, trafficking and violations and so on going on. And then he even literally went to the Vatican, I believe. I think it was the Vatican itself, and did some form of exorcism. And he said, strangely enough, he didn't even feel threatened after that. But I mean, he lost all kinds of things already. So,
he lost all kinds of things? What does it mean?
Well, what I mean is, I believe something like his family, that someone was taken away from his family and things like that. So he was fought against, let's say. However, then what is curious...
One second. They were threatening him? They were...
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I'm just recollecting a few elements of the various conversations I've listened to. But for example, he spoke with, I believe in this case, a Canadian bishop, because he's from Canada. And he more or less said, he wrote an open letter. So again, his name is Kevin Annett. I'm just posting it here.
I shall
Kevin
look it up.
Annett. And the Canadian bishop told him, they spoke about, he said, well, there's all these, things going on, trafficking and so on. And he wrote an open letter, I guess, to, I don't know, the bishop or whoever is responsible for Canada or something like this, but it was public. And then to his own...
It has to be public. Otherwise, it's not valid.
But he recounting it, he said he then spoke with a Canadian bishop who told him, well, we all know it's going on, but the problem you caused is that you make it public. And then he's also saying that basically you cannot ascend to any relevant position within the Catholic Church if you are not willfully, at the very least, covering up things like
playing
that.
the game on their rules.
Minimum, the Jesuits.
To the stories that David Hume Jr. relates, and the idea that civilization may be quite recent and all the kidnapping going on, because in that model, only within the Stafford cities, you had the Renaissance, you had culture, you had the royals and a few farmers and a few knights. And only later on, this knowledge actually was spread. But in order to spread it or to educate people, they basically started with kidnapping random individuals from the land, put them into the training program to let them become monks or knights and so on.
The
So, yeah.
training program that begins with the trains, like all of, also like after every reset, you know, like all of the children that get kidnapped or they get bought off families because they're starving, and they convince them that it's the best thing to do. The entire industrialization, my ass. There's been such a crazy reset, and you know, there were trains all over Europe, all over the US, you know, surely in Asia too. I mean, it's
The orphan
everywhere.
trains, yes.
The
Yes.
orphan trains, yeah. Yeah.
So
But the Jesuits, one second, the
Yeah, yeah.
Jesuits, there was an Italian Jesuit, ex-Jesuit now, that has come out as a whistleblower, and I've tried to get on a call with him a couple of years ago, and then he freaked out. Like, I don't remember his name right now, but like he got me to go on a specific app and you know, and buy to call with him on a safe line, blah blah blah. But he whistleblowed, and he said that when you join the Jesuit order, you have to swear that you will be even willing to eliminate physically anybody that comes between you and the order, even if that's somebody that you love, even if that's somebody that is like part of your family, even if that's your wife, even if that's like, screw it, you know, the order comes first, and so they do kill people for sure, because
a little
there's
mafia.
well, there's specific rights, you know, and maybe not all the rights necessarily like need death, but like some procedures and the things that they need, which are, we could say, in alchemical nature in ways, are needed with specific kind of host that is used as an alchemical vessel in order to filter through their life force and through their pure vessel, you know, specific kind of drugs, right? And so everything, you know, is pharmacon, right? And
Pharmakeia. Yeah.
pharmakeia comes after pharmacon, but like pharmacon, like poisons, different kind of poisons, and so dotes and antidotes. And so, did you say Mercury entered somewhere? No, what did you
Me?
say?
I didn't say
Yeah,
shit.
I don't remember earlier. Oh, or maybe it was
Uranus
Saturn.
is conjunct the sun right now, trining Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, which is pretty ratchet. And the moon is in
Right.
Aquarius, so the fact that it's a Queen of Swords card doesn't surprise me. Kayla asked a question. I actually want her on the podcast, Raphael. Shout out, Kayla. She's said she's going to Rome later this year. I mean, Rome is not quite Sicily, but any mystical places to visit. I was there for a week, and I just smoked hash and kind of walked around. I took a piss in the Forum. That's really illegal. I was like pissing on the Alamo, kind of.
I don't know.
There's some cool.
I'll think about it and I'll get back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, she's a Facebook friend. I can hook you up with.
Yeah, like I, you know, Rome. It doesn't matter how many times you go, like you'll never really know it. And I've been more than 10 times. But
don't buy weed from the guys on the bridge, the African
definitely,
immigrants. Yeah,
definitely
those guys
not.
did not have
If
weed.
you need something to smoke, I'll hook you up.
Yeah, she does.
I don't even know if it's legal to say something like this. I'm like, you're welcome.
Actually,
Kyla.
yeah, Rome is crazy because I get really drunk at the time I was drinking a lot. I get drunk and just wander around, and I don't speak Italian, and I wasn't doing tours.
But there's the best gelato in Rome, and they make it without sugar as well, and they make so many like flavors vegan, and it's delicious. Like, you have to go. I'll send you all the details.
Rome's what's up. I like Paris a little more personally, but Rome is like the original Paris, Avi. I'm curious though, what
you want to talk about my work, I guess.
Well, we can geek out about that, but I kind of want to get my head around it because it seems like you guys are chomping on the same bit in terms of like language is a trap, and these models have been foisted on people, and there's been a clockwork oranging of a generation through the trains and the whole Tartarian trip. I mean, I've heard, I don't know how legitimate this is because I don't care past the point, but it's like that they used to get kids high on hash and take them up to a room and be like, "These are the 70 virgins."
But that I wish was just a sheesh, you know, like this is much worse. We're talking about, once again, we're talking about the true worship of
like archons
of the Catholic Church. No. Like the true worship behind the Catholic Church is Diana, is Artemis, you know, is the huntress, and it's been disguised because she has to be veiled, right? Like now the great unveiling is happening, but like there's many veils, there's many layers, right? I don't care how many I rip today. Like, I think it's time. I think, I think it's time. Like, it's like, I'm a kindy and I'm looking everybody still playing Legos and I'm like, I'm 3 and I'm like, I'm fucking bored, Yalla, we got shit to do. Like, we got an empire to rebuild. Like, I feel that all of us deserve this, and it's like, and the children, especially the children, deserve it. Like
And let me just say, in connection to what you said earlier, the one part I didn't mention, because you spoke about education, and what I feel, unfortunately, most people don't see it that way. They only look out for amassing their own wealth and maybe buying a house. But just like you said, to receive an education, no matter, well, to an extent,
He is a Taurus.
to receive an education. No, I'm not a Taurus.
Oh.
No, she is. She's like, houses are cool. It's like,
yeah. Well, in Italy, we own houses. We don't.
So they're cool, but what I want to say is, like you said, it puts you in a privileged position. And actually, if anything, but like, again, few people are thinking that way, you should orient yourself to anybody and anything who does not have an education, no matter how much brainwashing there was in it, and you can filter that out. But what I mean is that in the West, and in Westernized societies in particular, we have a certain degree, at least, of freedom of speech, of education, of literacy, of wealth, of possibilities.
Yes.
And this is not often really being used in a way to equalize the playing field. Because in my mind, it's always like, well, you can build up the biggest bunker you have, but at some point, some system's going to break, and it's not sustainable. If we don't uplift everyone, at least in terms of, some degree of whatever, language, infrastructure, and all of these things.
Foundations.
Yeah, being an ostrich and putting your head in the sand is only so helpful. I mean, the movie Cloverfield kind of taps into that, and the second one of that, where it's like, even if aliens are coming, what are you going to do? Hide in a bunker and just like chill forever? Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, it's not. Although, to be fair, there's ruins. I guess I forget what country, but there's cities that were underground. Presumably, like in a Graham Hancock kind of sense, they were like kind of trying to get away from the Younger Dryas events. Or possibly other stuff. So I've if people in the chat know where that is, it's like not Romania, but it's somewhere over in, I feel like, Turkey or something like that. Anyway, yeah, we can talk about any number of things. Obviously, if you guys want to geek out harder on Tartaria or language or anything, keep going. If you can ripping veils, ripping bongs.
I mean, isn't it kind of? I don't like bongs, guys. I honestly want to switch to. I want to switch to the German like vape.
Okay.
Yeah, but I love my joints, Well, the saddest part, I would say, in all of this has been to accept that there's been so much deception, and to see how many truthful, faithful people are devoted to. Pass me the expression, like, I really don't want to sound blaspheme, so like I'm gonna make a distinction between the archetype of the divine embodiment of the divine masculine and golden child, which we could call Yeshua, if you want to call it in a more like distinct way, but Jesus yeah, whatever, like let's try to find a middle path here. Like Rumi will call it the beloved, right? Amazing. I love it. And then you have the true Jesus, and the true Jesus comes through the Septuagint. And so don't take my word, take the word that is written, and the word that it is, once again, we're not talking about a language that is used by your plumber. We're talking about a language that is only spoken by erudites, people that are one with language, because they know where it comes from and they know how to use it, and they know how to read it. You can't say one letter difference and change the meaning in Greek. You lie to yourself. And so may any academic step forward. And I'm not the first one to say these things. I'm definitely, please don't take this as I'm definitely not cool, because the system is still,
But don't worry, the academics will not step forward because
Of
they're
course
bound
not.
to receive the funding. The one example I like to bring, because I've learned of it personally
course
as
not.
well, is the Vincha culture or Danube culture, where they have apparently quite a few seemingly ancient sites, at least with artifacts that supposedly we shouldn't have been able to produce, with aluminium and like bones, which are non-human, so hybrid human, for lack of a better term. And if any researcher, and there have been some, that have any position dare to touch the topic or mention it, they get kicked out basically, and they have to find a different job. And within the European Union, it even says more or less officially that if you want to research anything, don't ever think of calling it Danube culture, because there is no funding for that. And the reason they claim is because they don't want German-speaking people to get any ideas, because we know what happened 80 years ago.
They get really prideful.
Which is, it's like, yeah, as if that wasn't a different psyop as well, you know? So
Right.
it's just using one excuse with another excuse, only not to do any actual research. And I've seen the artifacts there. One place is close to Vienna, and this is incredible. Any piece of it should be investigated and documentaries made. But no, they stick to their safe topics and their sanitized versions, potentially partially manufactured, of ancient Egypt or whatever else. But you never have any information coming out about this. So it needs non-academician to push forward the conversation, because the academicians, unfortunately, are completely beholden to the universities and the funding
changing.
system.
Clearly, the
and the
broken
founding, you hit the nail. The founding, ding, 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 ding. The founding.
The money makes the world go round.
You see, I don't get money from saying what I'm saying, because I'm not selling this information. This information is free for whoever feels, you know, ready enough to see for themselves what it is written. And there's resources for free online. Please go on Bible Hub, you know, to begin with. Or there's many others. Like, we can talk about it maybe like on a different thread, or, you know, I'll be pleased to share with you. But the thing is, how is that you easily bring and rip casually the fact that I would say 75% of the people in the world that are of religious dogmatic orientation and choice, sovereign choice, are actually devoted to a rapist and child trafficker, a pirates, yeah? Just like Abraham, you know? We're talking about people that were talking Greek. Forget about Aramaic. Forget, maybe they were speaking some Aramaic dialect, but Hebrew, definitely not. Hebrew wasn't even in the picture. Right now, we're talking about Middle Ages. Right now, we're talking about when Tiberius was on. Yeah, like, let's put things straight. We're talking about 1,000 years ago, not 2,000 years ago, and they were intentionally distinguishing themselves different than the Gentiles, the Romans, the guards, right? Why? Because they were not, right? And maybe we're not gonna do this like in this call, but like the entire story and mistranslations and intentional hiding and shading of the true translations of Christos and the true translations of mystery and salvation, and it's been intentionally covered because the church,
well, there's an agenda, apparently.
Who's the big whore, right? She's the big whore because she's, you know, she's hiding. And like even the fake death of the last pope, you know, on the day that allegedly, you know, like Jesus resurrected, like we're talking about somebody that, yes, got crucified, but he got crucified in a very specific moment, and he was tripping balls in that moment, and he was undergoing an initiation very similar to the Eleusinian mysteries, right? So there's some convergences here, and there's a lot of things to talk about, which I'm not going to discuss today, guys, because this is like seriously years of researches, and everything is accessible to you in the Septuagint. If you're there to take a vocabulary.
I was going to say, you should come up, you should make a translation and make a little fucking small website, and then you get a bunch of traffic there. And Raphael, why aren't you documenting the Danube mystery or whatever?
I don't like,
field trips.
I do share mysteries with my initiates, but it's not it's not mine to, you know, to bring forth the flag of the Septuagint. That's not my mission. Like I got, you know, other stuff to focus on, but like I just really cared to say, because there's always different agendas that are hidden in words and in the systems that we are run by and that we have, you know, that we're dealing with. And the reasons behind it are way more colored, usually purple colored. Yeah. And this is connected to the ISTE company. This is connected to, you know, like this is Pandora's box, and everything is truly connected. And so I just want to say, like, it is very interesting to, as a woman that is walking a devotional path, as a woman that is walking the true mysteries without pharmacon, without pharmakeia, you know, to see that I was so close to this system, you know, like even the town where I was born, it's like with Turin, it's like one of the biggest and highest number of lodges of Freemasons, right, in all Italy and Europe, and with Paris and Prague, you know. So it was just perfect. It was just perfect to realize how it is a mocking, how it is a taking, how it is a stealing, or it is a ruining and killing and you know, and all sorts of things that are like children of fear, and it's just, yeah. I'm grateful that I can talk about these things with you guys, to be honest. I'm
Well, it's a
so
rabbit
grateful.
hole I'll have to check out.
So
The Septuagint.
I think you're on point. From what I understand, even the Septuagint, to repeat myself, may be manufactured to some extent. However, what I will say regardless is that, so from what I understand through David Ewing Jr., many of these are like family history books, in a sense, that actually concern the royal families. But also here, as you very correctly state, even if you just go back a few translations, you usually find quite different meanings. And of course, it begs the question, whoever originally wrote that, with whatever intention or more true or relatable information, and then was changed again and again. This happens in almost all Holy Scriptures. And I want to play one brief game with you. Jim already knows it.
I love games.
So
Venus and Gemini.
the game is right here. So are you familiar with this guy?
Scaligero, yes.
Yes. What did he do? I mean, it says it here, but what do you know about him?
Scaligero.
This is not the test itself, you know? I'm just asking if there's any relation you have to it.
I haven't read anything about him, you know, at least in the recent 15 years, to say the least. But, you know, just anyhow, by looking at what you're showing here, you know, it's like, yes, all the connections make perfect sense. It's like, so you got all your cards in check.
He's one of these, you know, sages of which there appear to be so many, some of which you may even find various versions then again 1,000 years ago with very similar names, which again makes it more likely that something here was copied, like Anatoly Fomenko says. However, what I want to point out just in general in terms of how history is potentially manipulated and manufactured to a great extent, in my understanding, I always assume that the true reality is much grander actually and much more interesting. But there are various reasons why they don't want you to know about this. But anyways, this guy is known for modern chronology, basically. And from what I understand, every modern historian references back to this guy when they try to make up a timeline or they try to do carbon dating. You know, even with carbon dating, you need to insert a date. It's actually not completely objectively scientific, but it's based on estimates and so on. And most of them go back to this guy in terms of finding the proper spot in the timeline. Now, let me ask you, he is known for, here it says, ancient Roman history as well.
Right.
Who is the most important individual in ancient Roman history? You can also give us your private choice, but the public choice. Yes.
Just one?
World known, we'll put it that way.
Well, there's many. I mean, I don't know. Like, it depends on you know. It could be Caesar. It could be Nero. It could be Augustus. It could be
Exactly.
you know.
Sauce.
It could be It could be Kaiser Sose. I love that.
Kaiser Sose,
Thank
he's
you.
actually speaking
Thank you for that
Hungarian.
message.
La Tomazorcat at the beginning. He's saying, I saw the face. He's speaking Hungarian.
Are we
this
talking about
guy
the
at the
Usual
very
Suspects?
beginning. Yes.
Yeah.
La
Why do you guys got that
Tomazorcat.
illusion? Okay.
Well,
Of
anyways,
course.
so yes, you said the right one, which publicly would be known Caesar. And
Right.
all right, I can believe that, you know, whatever, wonderful. But then I have one small problem, which is that you have here the story of his early life. And then you have Julius, you have a father. He was born in Agen, France. So Joseph Justus Scaliger.
Same name.
To Italian scholar and physician Julius Caesar. And
But this
without
is
without getting into the details now of all the issues with chronology and history, but when I saw this, I was like, okay, my trust in the system completely breaks, because you do not honestly want to tell me that you're doing objective research, and then randomly, synchronistically, you realize that the literally most important and known individual from that former time, which you are researching and opening up to everyone, had the same name as your own father. But people can believe it if they want to, but this is always one thing in mainline history I love to point out, which to me is
I don't think a
beyond
synchronicity like that makes it not
credulity.
believable. Just for the devil's advocate record, because it's like there's stories about, you know, the Titanic sinking before it sank, kind of in fiction, or
well, the
Abraham Lincoln getting
Titanic
shot.
probably didn't sink. It probably
Different
was
point.
the
I
other
know.
one.
I got you.
Yeah.
But like the Baron von Trump time travel stuff. I mean, there's things that get written that are highly weird and synchronistic that are beyond belief. And that, I mean, we haven't really talked much about your presuppositions because we've been getting in the weeds of like the world
21,
age
21,
culture.
21,
But like,
21.
okay, so things in terms of like, okay, let's just say for a minute that there is a bunch of cabals running around trying to sell people ideas on how the world works in order to establish a dominance paradigm and be in control for generations or whatever. Do you look at that as like, quote, evil? Do you look at it as like soul contract agreed upon things and like Kali Yugas, where we're having to go through cycles of like ignorance and, you know, awareness and golden ages and all this stuff? Because sometimes I feel,
but like we just came out of the dark one, like the
one of many,
industrialization,
possibly.
and one of many. But it's like, you know, this is not technology. This is not advancement. Like, this has been very intentional, secular, you know, interbreeding and control of people. Like, it's pretty majestic, to be honest. Like, I gotta recognize it. It's like it's pretty interesting.
Well, it's like a long con in a sense, multi-generational long con. If you guys are correct, where it's like, hey, we're gonna, and this gets tricky because it gets into breakaway societies, and I'm not saying there's people on the moon or whatever, but it's like, there's probably inculcational groups that have data that is not privy to the general public. I don't know what podcast it is, like the Immaculate something or other. I've heard about it just this past week. They have some whistleblower on there who's basically saying like, you know, we're in a shitty matrix, essentially God's real, and like we're all getting secondhand fucking ash bong rips of knowledge. Like science is loaded and it's never going to let you know what the truth is, all this kind of stuff. So I just don't know, like when you approach these things, it's cool to be conspiratorial and say, haha, the emperor has no clothes. That's fine. I'm not even against that. But I'm wondering,
guys,
what you
this
do
is friendship
believe.
Check this out. Somebody just walked in.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, Taurus season indeed. Last day of Taurus season. It is 419. Tomorrow's 420, I guess.
I mean, we're right on time. I was thinking to do it on 420, but then, you know,
you'll be really high.
Apart from that, I don't know. I filled right 19, and then after I said yes to the 19th, I saw the episode of last episode, and you were mentioning how 19 is a very important date. Right? For the order.
Oh, I think
and I was like, snap.
Bicycle
this is so
day.
Cool.
Is that now?
Today's 19th.
I know, but I'm like, is that? Oh no, that was April, not April. See, we're already a month.
Well, 19. Since we talk about the Jesuits, so 19, of course, is AI. We had COVID-19 for a reason. We've just been in the 19th century for a reason.
Gotcha.
But 19, actually, if anyone can look this up, maybe I'll also find it again. If you just enter Jesuit rings,
Just
Let's
with
see.
rings. Oh, and little note. Um, the Jesuit order indeed covers with the, like, you know, the little boys, you know, like studying, and I had a couple of schoolmates that got a little, you know.
You mean the pedophilia stuff?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
of
yeah.
course.
Well, okay, I'm just saying you're on the same page. Yeah, it seems like I don't think that even that's exclusive to religious schools. I think that's an issue in cultures. I mean, the Greeks technically
Oh,
had like little muses and side hustles with
well, it's all
So
about the
this is
muse, you
this is
know.
supposedly a Jesuit ring design. So you have it's
Wow.
supposed to say IXXI. However,
Dos
also
Equis
it is
Mason.
eerily similar to. I just looked this up. So the school I went to was run by the Franciscans. They also have a similar logo.
Same.
The Freemason logo. I mean, not when I was there, but then it was given from Jesuits to the Franciscan, and then it got public, whatever that means, humanistic school. But anyways, here
The
you have the
compass. Yeah.
IXXI, which very much also looks like the Freemason symbol, you know, these like
Yes.
things, right?
The
And
compass.
also, just
Compass.
one more thing to point out, you said you didn't want to talk about Trump. I'm bringing it in just for this one part. So Andreas recently interviewed Leo Sagami, who is someone quite interesting to listen to. He's Italian, and I just love his accent. He talks a lot about the Catholic Church and all the issues. You may actually want to check that out, especially
Okay.
when he's talking with Andreas. Leo Sagami, he's been around. And he's published many books called Confessions of the Illuminati, because he was born into some
Ooh.
sort of more important family. I can't vouch for everything he says, but certainly he says many interesting things.
Do
But
you think
anyhow,
whistleblowers and
for
families
one
like that
thing,
would get like survive? Like, I feel like if you guys are like they'll kill anybody who's not on the agenda, how are these little
Do
well,
like
it.
kids selling
he was
self-published
pressured to
books?
leave Italy and so on, which I can relate to, and I cannot say whether he's 100% on point, but he's certainly saying quite a few things along the lines of what you said today that the Catholic modern church would not be happy about. So it's understandable and reasonable that they would at the very least make sure he's leaving Italy at the very least. But anyways, he likes Trump. He often talks about Trump, and the one thing I don't get is that
He
Trump
likes
also,
Trump.
yeah, for some reason,
What a
maybe because it's
waste.
politically convenient. But the thing is that Trump initially himself was Jesuit educated. Everyone can look this up. It doesn't have to mean anything in particular, but anyhow,
Right.
to me, all the world is a stage. But what I want to point out is Trump was the 45th president. 4 plus 5 is 9.
9.
And now he's the 47th president. 4 plus 7 is 11. 9,
Right.
11. 11,
Right.
9. And this is
Right.
exactly what is put here on the
19.
Jesuit ring. Jim recently posted this compilation with the Facebook logo and the Gmail logo
Oh, yeah,
and so
yeah.
on, and how they're all Masonic symbol. And even if you look at the X logo from supposedly
Twitter.
Elon Musk as a front man, you see the different widths of the X, and actually it fits perfectly to the one side of the Freemasonic symbol. So if you would mirror it, you would have again the Freemasonic symbol.
And
So,
one note, AI in Siberian, there is the meaning of the word is great spirit. It's like, you know, the great mind, the great intelligent, the great being, and it's literally AI. And that's why the difference between Nicholas and Nikolai as AI, you know? And so the fact that even the mockery goes from the Latin letters that must be usually either lowercase or the first uppercase and then lowercase, but whenever everything is used big capitals, that is not valid. That is what you're reading. You think you're reading Latin letters, but in fact you're reading
Babylonian stuff.
Yeah. Yes. And so, and this is part of the great mockery, you know, because, oh yeah, we gave you institutionalized free education for you to learn how to read. Now, they didn't teach you how to read. They taught you how to read scribbles and tell you that one thing means something and mistake emblems for symbols. And you know, like that's dangerous stuff, you know. And so this is why, once again, I'm so grateful to have received the education that I had, which is public. I'm so grateful. Great. But, you know, shame on everybody who doesn't want to speak up of what is really written and why the system is what it is. We have, institutionalized and worshipped, death, but it's also a fake death, and it's like it was the death. Not that he didn't die, because that man died, in ways, but he was. He was doing very, very naughty stuff, very things that like nobody would want to hear. And so I'm not going to talk about it. It's up for you to read. And it's like, get a good vocabulary, like a good one, like thick. And even if you don't know how to translate to like the perfect word or whatever, there's things online. Like it's really sad. And so once again, as a woman with a purpose that wishes to like seed and see the garden grow, and for us, for all of us and our inner children and our children and the children of our friends, it's good that good principles and good observation skills and honesty are established. And I just want to break an arrow onto like the true Great Spirit, because besides the horror Babylon, like the true muse, she's so majestic, and through grace and through seriously, I don't know, I'm going through this journey like all of you guys, and it's like, it's wild and I love it, and it's incredible. But through grace and faith, beautiful miracles have been able to be happening. And
so here's a little, Raphael played like here's a game about Julius Caesar. I always ask people who are theologically inclined.
But Julius Caesar, let's go back on that, please.
Well, but first, what's not grace? The fact that we are conscious and sentient on a third rock from the sun, supposedly, or life is able to.
Are you seriously thinking we're a third rock from the sun? Dude,
no, but no matter what model you have,
it's pretty fucking close. There's some days that I'm like, yo, which sun are you? Like,
oh, look, real talk, real talk. Here we go.
But what's not grace?
Are you seriously thinking that like the sun is not local?
You gotta step up your game, Jim. Now.
You really think the sun is not local? Let's talk about this, because this is
and Rupert Sheldrake, who's been on the podcast, he gets into morphic fields and resonances, and I played around with the electric universe theory at one point, which presupposes quite a bit of things that you guys may not think if you're a flat earther, etc.
I think it's both.
Well, simultaneity is a beautiful thing. Jupiter is in Gemini right now, so why not? And Uranus, which is about to enter Gemini, it's conjunct the sun right now, so it's not terribly surprising that Uranus, like the sun, the light of illumination, is being conjunct Uranus, trining Pluto retrograde. So we're going over, essentially, astrologically, the vibe check is values and kind of histories and inheritances of beauty and all this kind of stuff is being electrified. And maybe or maybe not, we'll have a Frankenstein that kind of sits up and talks modern English or whatever the fuck. But we're in a really interesting moment. And I guess, it's kind of a, not a Zen koan, that's a little strong, but it's like, what's not grace? Like, even if black holes are real, or even if you're in a simulation just having a video game time, or even if you're dead already and we're in a bardo state and you're dreaming all this, I try to get into people's presuppositions a little, because what you believe definitely colors the lighting of what your holographic experience might be. So if, and I think that's evidenced quite readily in people's worldviews and ontologies and how they operate in systems of belief and thought and all that stuff. If you think you're dead already, you're going to act very differently. If you think you're waiting for an eternal life, or if you think there is a God versus there's not, or if you think that space exploration is possible versus if you think there isn't, et cetera,
Katy Perry.
Katy Perry. Yeah, no, that whole thing was, it felt like a bad car show. At that, we're getting to a point where the nuts and bolts on media, which is God, I think a Roman God, maybe a Greek God, media, is like a deception kind of thing.
Dude, I didn't want to talk about it, but you're touching on it. I'm like, this is about the Medeas. You're like
the Medicis, you mean?
You just serve it, you're just serving it to me. Like, I don't even have to just like reach for it. I'm so grateful to be here today, guys.
Well, I'm sure the joint don't hurt, or the multiple joints now. So I don't know, random questions like, what are your thoughts on technology and where we're going with AI and stuff like that? Obviously, the fact that we can have an international conversation on internet is a nice little byproduct of these Jesuit schools and all their education and stuff. It's like we have globalism because of this. I don't think, for better or worse, Egypt wasn't Insta messaging each other and all this kind of stuff, or PayPaling each other.
Well,
So
in a
we've got
different
benefits,
way.
and yeah, it's all grace. I mean, I'm at a point where it's like whatever it is, it's all happening, and we get to play with it. But where do you think things are going with technology? Like, are you cool with Chat GPT? Like, where are you going with in your
I
gets into
mean,
archonic thinking and reflections, and kind of in a Kabbalistic sense, Klipot and reflections of reflections, and what's true, essential versus false, light, I guess you could say. If we're all in a dream anyway, who cares if there's synthetic intelligence? But if we're
I
not,
don't know about you, man, but like every 28 days since some
there's a
time,
lunar
which I'm
cycle.
not gonna say how long time, there's like blood running down my thighs, and
Isn't that typical?
I assure you that that's really real, and that's not a dream, and this is like the covenant, and like you're hitting it, like I don't like to call it work, because work means slavery. Like what I verse myself into, what I'm elated to dedicate myself to in this work, has to do with the DNA, and it has to do with the spinal fluid, and it has to do with the covenant, and has to do, with our genes and our multidimensionality. But Medea and Medusa, but like Medea is connected indeed to media, right? You say media, but it's media, but it's the same root, right? So please don't say media, say media.
Well, I'm not Italian.
It makes me cringe. Like I seriously have like things scrolling everywhere. I'm like,
That Virgo moon kicking in hard. She's like, it's not her.
I can't stand it. I can't stand it. It's like the Medusas, the Medeas were, well, Medea was the granddaughter of Medusa, but Medusa's, it was
the Gorgon, the Medusa with the snake hair we're talking about, right?
well, they wasn't snake hair, they were anointing their hair. They were priestesses. It was sisterhood. They were in, they were taking the name of Medea, of Medusa, and then Medea, but they were very two different beings. The original Medusa was good, and then Medea lost it a little bit. She, she killed her own children and shit, just to make a point with her husband, cheater. I mean, in a way, I get it, but that's a little bit too much. But the Medusas were the priestesses that were anointing with ointments that were mixed with pharmacon, and so there were different ways of assuming and creating alchemical, reactions within your own vessels, which is the temple, of the divine, right? And so different rites, not just the Eleusinian mysteries, but like way more ancient rites than that, and the ones dedicated, in fact, to Artemis, they were all based about this purple, and they were like dotes and antidotes. And so this is where Mercury comes in, right? And this is why you can definitely associate the figure of the pirates, the pirate, which doesn't mean as the most people think, but like pirates means trafficker of children and goods, yeah. With a ordained kind of purpose, yeah. And and then you take his figure as sacrificial, offering, and it's so multi-layered, and it's just, yeah, it just touches me. It's like I'm I appear so like passionate, and I am, but it's like it's very sensitive, like this, yeah, it's very sensitive for me to talk about this.
Word. Well, is there something else you'd like to talk about? Seems we hit
Yeah,
the brick wall on that one.
about miracles,
Miraculous, sir.
Yeah.
So
Los
what about
milagros.
miracles?
Miracles are real, and I, by grace and faith alone, and not medicines and not things, I've been witness with other people of incredible blessings, and and goodness is real, and we're definitely in a spiritual war, and the great spirit just can do anything. And that's been proven over and over again. I've been so grateful to walk this path for the last 8 years. And there's been removal of cancers over distance, you know, like I don't even, you know, I'm not even required to impose hands. And there's been autoimmune conditions, there's been Lyme, there's been MS, there's been multiple
stuff you've done,
sclerosis.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There's been immaculate conceptions, there's been cervical cancers, there's been different degrees of indeed possession and you know, sleep paralysis and yeah, dream stuff and you know, multidimensional stuff. And so this is I'm not a healer. I'm a gatekeeper. I'm a student of faith, just like anybody else. I'm a daughter, you know.
So I want to keep barking up that tree in a second, but you did reference that you think we're in a spiritual battle.
That's obvious.
Of good versus evil. Okay, so that's a presupposition. Yeah. Ontologically, it's not necessarily obvious.
I would say it's obvious for what you can see around you. And it's like, it's very important to be honest and not, like, know when it's time to draw the line and say, like, no, this is me. And then what I'm seeing outside is not me because, you know, not everything outside is a reflection of you, you know. Sometimes, yes, for sure.
Lots of belief. I'm curious, Raphael, where you stand on this topic, because we don't talk about it very much. Good and evil and interior versus exterior reflectioning. Like in a Basharian sense, it's all you, it's agreements, whatever, it's all wavy. There's no good and evil.
There's so many layers, you know.
Clearly. Yeah. I'm kind of wondering what Raphael thinks, because I haven't heard his opinion on it in a couple of years. He used to profess more loudly certain ontologies. I mean, I know he likes David Ewing Jr. now, but I don't know what his belief systems are.
David Jr.?
David Ewing Jr. is a guy he does work with that he's been pushing the links on about. Well, I don't know enough about him to talk about him. That's why I want to get him on the podcast. Oh. But yeah, basically an alternative historian.
Well, talking about manufactured history, basically. So to your question, I would say,
because she's in the camp of like evil versus good is real, and I used to be way hard into that paint, pretty hard, and now I'm like in a very different place personally. But I just want to know.
I mean, even again, if we would take up that stance, even then, I assume you would agree. Even the evil was created by the same origin source. If we go along that route, right?
Well, not the origin source. So it was created from the creation, not from the creatrix. And I say creatrix so we don't use gender and like, I'm not going to get touched into that, but like gender is made up, guys, you know. Does it make sense?
Well, when you say creatrix, you mean like creation as such versus a divine order outside of it? Yeah.
I mean, the source didn't create evil. And the source doesn't not need evil to be. That's a misconception, and also the entire mistranslation of as above, so below. Like, even that like makes me cringe. It's like and this is how minds are shaped and seated, you know, with parts of truth and then hidden behind it and interwoven, you know, like the lie. And this is how it can go quiet and silent for some time, but that has ripples. But no, through free will, you know, divine beings chose evil, but evil wasn't, you know, like, in order to really accept and get to the point that you don't really have free will, and that's a grace anyways, you know, you have some way to go, but it comes the moment, you know, when you have to accept it, like, and you have to accept that. Does it make sense what I'm saying in English?
To a degree, yeah. I mean, yeah. So you think that God is like beyond good?
I think in like 6 different languages sometimes. So like, just give me 1 second. Come again.
So if I heard you right, you're saying something to the effect of like source is beyond good and evil, and that there was kind of a fragmentation of divinity into less preferred outcomes, which we call evil, I guess. Well, which is a very Luciferian fall vibe, but you don't have to necessarily ascribe to that belief web.
I would say that the highest, you know, goodness source, which indeed doesn't need to to parasitically, you know, take energy or life force anywhere, because cannot lie and cannot deny its core truths. then when you have a field of infinite potentiality that from one center point, you know, like towards like infinite directions, right? Because
Like
just
the
imagine it like
monad.
this, right?
Yeah.
Then
Like that.
amidst that principle, there is also the potentiality with one divine individual sovereign being, sentient being might choose conscientiently, you know, to that. But that doesn't mean that the highest source has created that. That was not the plan, right? But at the same time, you must first give the choice of the free will before fully accepting the grace of actually not having free will at all, right? In ways, I would say it's a co-creation, but like in ways, it's part of the initiation. It's like, and at least I speak from personal experience. It's been proven and proven to me, like the immaculate timings of specific things, and it's just remarkable.
Divine synchronous order, as Raphael might put it. Her Mercury is in Mercury in Aries 9th house, just for somebody who wants to know. A conjuncture MC. So she's here to be a little trailblazer of philosophical truth, spiritual truth, capital T, no doubt, and probably do it in such a way that this is where I get kind of. I mean, I'm a Sun and Moon Gemini, so I tend to talk a lot. I haven't talked much this episode, surprisingly, but to every two there's a fro. So if we say there is good, and even in German, gut is God or whatever, it's like that in a Jordan Petersonian sense. Like we have archetypes for the highest good. Therefore, the idea of a worst case scenario, a most bad, would like a yin yang dichotomy kind of comes about, and it's transcultural. It seems, whether it's of the East or of the West or whatever, people tend to think in terms of dominance hierarchies, i.e., orders. So like the Titans are better than humans, or oh my gosh, the king is from on high, or whatever. Like we tend to ascribe value, in a way of a dominance hierarchy, and this is documented pretty well in nature. So whether you go watch Chimp Empire on Netflix, 4 episodes, well worth watching, you'll see largely where a lot of our kind of click thinking and just a lot of our features as a species echo through chimpanzees, who are 97% DNA similar to us. I mean, I don't really.
I'm a creationist. Like like if you really still believe at that like con of Darwin that got a really fucking big paycheck, you gotta
we may
trust
not
me.
agree
You
on
know?
everything, Miriam, but still,
we
Jim,
will
you
not.
gotta step up. You gotta step up your game, Jim. I'm telling you.
I don't. The whole thing is a game. It's all. See, I'm at a point, and this is for better or worse. When Raphael and I started this podcast a few years ago, I think he was the token New Ager and very Basharian, and I was kind of a Christian psychonaut who was willing to play with ideas. And it seems, and maybe I'm misspeaking, but it seems Raphael's kind of landed in a more skeptical David Ewing Jr. thought camp, generally speaking, questioning narratives from very like no emperor has any clothes except a few people that I trust kind of thing. And I'm more personally at a place where I can't even tell if I'm a brain in a vat or a butterfly dreaming. I'm a little looser with this stuff. That's just where I'm at.
These are separate questions. The one thing is
right.
still
That's why I was asking about good and
question
evil,
about the spiritual architecture, or whether we live in some sort of a light matrix, which may well be. The other thing is, are there things you can actually verify, try to understand, or at least see where you're being lied to? That's the big thing for me.
And is there a function behind the lie? Right. Like,
well, of course, there is a function behind the lie. The question is it overall healthy for the society? And I would claim it is not.
Point. Okay, so here's a good example. You have a bunch of people in your culture. Let's just say you're an
I'm loving
culture.
This. I'm so grateful. This is so good.
Keep smoking if you want. Smoke them if you got them. Basically,
I'm talking about us being together, not about joints.
All right. Well, I can't smoke. Well, I can, but my girlfriend hates who I become on weed, so I'm kind of like, all right, whatever. I still trip and all that. But anyway, that's not here nor there. The point is, something to the effect of like, let's just use this as a thought experiment. Let's just say you're in some Serengeti tribal. It doesn't even matter where, but like some like group that's like, primitive in the sense of like we hang out at fires. Okay, that's fine. I'll look into that, I guess. Destroyed, and he's even got genes as his image, so he's clearly way up on that wave. So in any event, let's just say you're around a culture, you've got a few arbitrators of like what to do.
No, but just pause for a second, brother Jim, one second.
What up?
Just pause for a second. Like, don't you want to accept yourself like the honor and the greatest like
I think we're more of a mystery that can never be
listen up
uttered,
listen up
in a sense.
listen up can you accept the greatest honor of be the embodiment of the emanation of the divine?
It's an eminence front. It's a put
This
on.
is an emanation. This is not like the feminine, the masculine didn't come from mating. That comes
No,
later.
I think there's transcendent
That's like,
archetypal things.
you know,
But okay,
that's
so my
nonsense.
position, I mean, we're going to talk about evolution now. My position is something to the effect of we're all in spirit no matter what. So the idea of materiality
Your
is a false
spirit is
dichotomy.
not primate, darling. So you can dust
Okay.
that off.
Here's her Aries Mercury 9th house. She's telling me how it is from a very blunt place. So I don't even I want to don't worry about my thinking in terms of evolution, because I'm not like a hard Darwinianist by any means. But I do think that it's all spirit involuting. We've talked about this before, Raphael, right? Having a material quote experience, and this would presuppose at some levels, and it doesn't have to be absolute truth, but it seems that we're dreaming of a material reality that we're progressing through, i.e. time space, even though that stuff is not necessarily ultimately true. It's very real. It's like the Matrix is real, but it's not true. Like astrology is real and tarot is real and chemistry is real, but it's real within conditions, and the conditions are a subset of a higher quote reality called truth, I guess you could say.
But your chemistry also is influenced by the meta and also by your higher bodies, you know, and it's a two ways.
There's a lot of ins and outs, a lot of what have yous.
I just want to like quickly answer I want to answer like two questions and like kind of like circle and like circle it up.
I want to point that thought experiment out eventually, because I do want to ask this question.
What languages does Miryam speaks? I speak Italian. Sicilian is a language, not a dialect. English, Spanish. I did Latin and ancient and Koine Greek at school for 8 years. I've been studying a little bit of Hebrew and
your favorite.
A couple of words. You know, like I can manage with a few words. You know, Bahasa Indonesia and Thai. Nick Noi. Yeah,
she knows how to ask where's the restroom in Thai, I guess. I'm kidding.
Sure. But just to like answer like and connect your question about AI and technology and it does connect with the Jesuits indeed, and it does connect with, you know, the core pillars of, you know, the work that I'm versed into and dedicated to about DNA and so just to like geek out a little bit and do a quick, you know, Dune reference. I don't know if everybody has seen the first season of the prophecy of the series. Please do that because there's some you know real thing that is connected to what I'm speaking of. So we're talking about like genetic intelligent computing, right? So like we can consider all phones like the StarTAC, like analog technology, and then the tech that we're using to connect today is already, you know, semi, you know, intelligent for itself, as we know. But all of this is like giving you the nail of your pinky compared to like the entire body of what actually we're talking about. And this is part of, you know, the ancient tech that has been hidden for so long, and this is part of it's connected indeed, you know, like to Hitler, and is indeed connected to like all of these lineages that were like bent themselves in order to have a house with a coat of arms covered with the mantle of the whore, right? And having patrimony and liquidity in order to go and do ventures, in order to go and, oh, wait a second, I don't even speak Spanish. I don't really give a fuck. I didn't work with the other guy, but Columbus will decided to just like try with the Spanish and, you know, take the woman and convince her that he was amazing, and with the money went again to the place where he already was, you know, in India to do whatever he had to do, you know. And so it's been always like this for so long, and all of the search of tech, you know, this is why you have the Spanish Inquisition and you have the disruption and of all of the pyramids and they were looking for ancient tech, and
I mean,
many
like
people
the
found
Nazis
it.
in Indiana Jones style.
I mean, but not just them, like so many,
Yeah,
you know,
You're
after
saying this
and
is a
before,
repeating
and
theme.
this is still going on, you know, like we have multiple Ark of the Covenants, you know, if we want to mention one, right? And so in there we would have to start talking about monatomic gold and other things, but that's, you know, something else. And so we're talking about different times kind of tech, that different orders, because like even though everybody's kind of bent a little bit under the whore, they have different rules and different pieces of the map within which, you know, they have some freedoms, and that's all because, you know, this goes on since a long time, and so they kind of all coexisting, and even though they're all worshiping the same fallen, you know, deity, they're all trying to gain as much power and ancient intel, you know, as possible. And in this intel, yes, there is also registry of ancient, you know, DNAs and stuff, and different things that are necessary to power specific machines and so forth. But, you know, a lot of these things cannot be unlocked because you need an actual embodied soul to unlock it. And this is why a lot of these people with black magic, they're still not getting a lot of the things, you know, that I could say, like, in the future we will see unfurling.
I mean, I'll say this really quickly, and then I do have that thought experiment I want to ask. When I went to Rome and I was there for like a week or two, I went to St. Peter's, whatever
Square.
Yeah, square, the
With the
Vespa
obelisk.
thing. Yeah. And I swear to God, there had to be alien tech or something because my crown chakra was getting lit. Like it felt like when you're like, oh, certain techniques and technologies have to accrue certain parameters to make them vessel.
Can you define alien? Because to me,
when I say alien, I'm not thinking like little grays. I was just like, something spiritually important is like I don't even know how to explain it. Like I've crossed the booby trap. It's activated. I don't even know how to explain it, because when I was just sitting there in the thing, I don't give a shit about Catholicism. I was just kind of chilling after like sleeping in the train station.
Give a shit about Catholicism.
I was just doing vagabond stuff, and I was like kind of drinking some wine and chilling and sitting in Pete's Square, and my crown chakra, which, except on DMT, hasn't done anything like this. In any event, I don't even really remember my exact point, but I guess what
it was that intense.
Oh yeah, it was super intense. It was the most intense thing possible. Like it was like Sahasrara chakra stuff. It was no joke.
Oh.
It was like my avatar is lit for sure.
But you know that they built a huge kind of machine in order to like bring that and lift it. Like they had never been able to like do that. Like, and it was something was built exactly for that, because it was huge. It's huge. It's so heavy, like the obelisk.
Oh yeah, no, those things are crazy, and there's even
they took it all the way
still buried where they're like, how did you guys make this? There's a whole lot of mysteries that I don't have either the research particularly or the interest past a point about. Like I'm not Indiana Jones about it, and this gets tricky in terms of dissemination of information, which really gets back to the point what I was trying to make earlier, where it's like night is not evil, day is not good, but there's obviously solar and lunar cults that are going way back into archetypal kind of languaging. So if you had this is what I was trying to say like a half an hour ago. If you had a group of people and you're sitting around the campfire and you're like, there's boogeymen and monsters or whatever, things we can't understand or know, and maybe you don't want to wrestle with a lion at night and lose. There's things outside of this safety of the culture, physically, literally made manifest in a fire or whatever, and the people that live by it. They would say, fear the night, the light of day saves us, huzzah, huzzah. There's a lot of that kind of archetypaling through language and myth and metaphor, which has very real ramifications in terms of our evolved experience that may or may not have metaphysical correlates, if that makes any sense. Like it doesn't mean night is evil. It just means we have adapted less perfectly, I guess you could say, to deal with those things, unlike a bat or, you know, whatever.
But I would say that the distinction in the yin and yang that you're doing, it's like the black in the light, or the black in the yin and yang that you're talking about, that's not evil. That's darkness. That's like...
Right, we're talking about polarity. Like
but
there's different archetypes, and that's kind of
there's different kinds of darkness.
Good and evil. So you think there's actual evil? Like there's
different kinds of darkness. There's the darkness that means like your shadow, you know, the aspects of you that you haven't yet, you know, like acknowledged or like amazing subconscious, and then you have the darkness, like the night, or the darkness of the true light, of the void, of creation, the womb of creation. And then you have the darkness that is evil. But the one in the yin and yang, it's not evil. The true highest, creatrix doesn't need evil to be. That is another, like, this is how.
So what are you defining evil
slip
as?
in. This is how I define.
Yeah, because you're saying there's a spiritual warfare basically, and there's good versus evil, and there's a story.
But I mean, but even Luciferianism, like the true Luciferia, is Venus, and before Venus,
bright morning
Lucifer.
star.
Yeah, but even before her, like Saturn was called that. And so it's like you have to go and check that with references through time, checking like different ancient texts, and the reference will be evident to you, but you got to know where to look for it. And it's out there, and it's like I would say that Lucifer, as in like the light bringer. Why is it the light bringer? Lucifer could be like Mercury, right? We were talking about pure darkness. Is that
Andreas.
woman.
Pregnant nothing. This starts getting into language that's beyond like, hey, this emperor has no clothes and we're little cuckolds of fucking the Jesuits or whatever. Because if it is coming off from the womb of all spirit,
that's the same thing as Mercury. Lucifer and Mercury are the same guy as
the
as energy,
or something like that.
What it's not just about awareness. The symbol of Mercury is the staff with the two snakes that intertwine, and that's the dote and the antidote. Jesus, who was a mercenary and he was doing the things that he was doing, you guys, and look it up for yourselves. He needed to take specific pharmacon for his initiations, and the thing is, the entire, at least mostly of the recorded, like spirituality, since we have account of it, has to do in some way with some substance, because we are indeed also chemistry. Already by breathing, in a different environment, you're creating a different kind of alchemical stage.
So that's
within
a material
yourself,
reality, right?
This is also material, because indeed.
So do you think
it better be material for you too, otherwise.
I'm trying to get just the worldview, because when I hear certain languaging, it sounds very.
It is very material.
Swashbuckly, like, oh my gosh, the good guy. Let's like Star Wars almost. Where it's like, fuck the Death Star, screw the Empire, the truth will set us free. Let's hang out with the Ewoks and Yoda.
Well, it's cool. Multi-layered, because you have your individual, creation, and then you have the spiritual and physical inheritance also through blood, not just through spirit, because this is how the covenant is passed on, and this is why the Scarlet Code, this is why the Scarlet Thread, right? And this is what it's about, and it's a different kind of inheritance, but you do get some of that, and so you got to know where you come from in order to know where you're going, and this has been hidden from us. So much has been. I don't claim to know everything, God forbid. Like I'm such a little, pulcino. I'm a little chicken. I'm a cosmic fart, a pretty one, but still a cosmic fart. And
Jupiter conjunct Leo rising, folks, right there.
Right.
Ben. Okay, so like Scarlet Code means blood to you. I mean, that's a good example. Like DNA is this mystery.
I wouldn't say blood as meaning like this is how you pass on your lineage. It's like the true creation, the true, being in the image. What it means to like
pass down.
You're creating something, right? And it's like you're creating a better version of yourself. Hopefully, you better fucking hope for that. You should work for that, right? But it's some spiritual power. It's in the blood. That's like part of the essence, and this is why a lot of black magicians or shamanic people, do like animal sacrifices or human sacrifices, or even just eating and consuming as diet, like animals, like that's in ways, like I'm not saying, I'm still battling within myself, but like
getting called out for using analogy. I hear you.
I'm just saying, like
it's impossible.
I'm going through this journey too, and it's been challenging, and I just know that I'm a fan of animals. So
well, that's a good ending note.
Yeah.
Dr. Doolittle in the house.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is it's all about the pharmacon, and everything almost can be pharmacon. Pharmacon is not just poison. It's one of the translations, but they were grooming, like these children were exposed to specific substances from the womb, and so like the virgin mothers were tripping balls like day in day out, and because they noticed that if they could create tolerance, and this is just facts, we create tolerance to anything,
crack
do
babies.
something long enough.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, like but this is not crack, like this, we're talking about specific like 7 types of like snake venom and other stuff that I'm not going to mention. I'm sure that somebody probably tried to reproduce it, but it's all available, it's all available. Maybe you guys want to check Galeno as a reference, and there's a lot of medical texts. And funny joke, I translated a lot of them at school. I was growing up and like reading about like people doing things with animals and ceremonies and slaughterings. It's like, what is going on, guys? What are you on? Who's your pusher? Like, where are you partying at? Because maybe I'm not raving in the right place yet. I'm joking. Jokes aside. And it's all connected, because it all has to do with intentional interbreeding of specific people that are on the purple. And the purple wasn't just the dye for your clothes. The main purple was, that's the guy. I'm gonna hit the ladies' room real quick, but I'll be back.
I wonder who his dad is, because if it's something that is historically important, are we gonna doubt him now?
So I believe that even I had learned about this guy at some point in Latin or something. So just PSA to correct what I said earlier, because I said it wrong again. So the school I attended supposedly originally was run by Jesuits and then by the Piarist order. But this is still the logo I was referring to, where you can see,
on the
just
ring.
put one, similar to the ring, but also if you
it's almost the 3 pyramids too, if you think about it.
Indeed, and if you invert one of those, or even just like this, I mean, just take the centerpiece. We have the Freemasonic logo, basically, right?
Square on the compass.
So, for whatever reason, they can't invent anything unto themselves.
There's
and what I wanted to say,
sun, Raphael, the dream, it only has so many permutations, I guess.
In relation to what Miryam said in terms of the blood. So again, the open question remains: what is this structure of reality really? Are we all contained within consciousness? What's going on? How was even?
I don't even know if it's a noble question. I mean, this has been the age-old like philosophical issue. It's like, who are we, where are we from, and where are we going?
It is a fundamental question, and also the question of whether we reincarnate or not, whether this is the whole thing or not. But what I can say from the information I gathered in terms of the blood, so on a recent Europa, we briefly spoke about dark field microscopy. So the idea that you take one drop of your blood and then you can analyze it and you can see how the blood cells are reacting to each other, whether there is filament and clotting, or whether there's some autoimmune issue if your white blood cells are fighting each other. And I have a dear friend who's doing this type of research and studies. And what he realized is when treating someone, of course, through different supplements, different technologies, lifestyle changes, what you can do is you can see the change within the blood pretty quickly. But also what he realized is then he gave a particular device, actually this device, just so I can show it, which is a frequency-based device, to someone at home and said, look, please use this at home because it's frequencies and it's maybe going to help your condition. And then what he did is he was again checking the same sample, which he took from that individual who now was maybe 100 kilometers away, and he could see the change in that blood sample. So it seems as if blood in some way, shape, or form is like quantum entangled, for lack of a better term. And that may be the reason why we have these black magic practices involving blood, because there is some type of a, however you would call it, spooky action at a distance, to quote Einstein, my favorite,
magic.
Right? That's going on. So there seems to be some sort of interconnectivity layer that is beyond the material which we can see, often associated with scalar waves and many other things.
Which gets into the I forget his name now. He came on the podcast. That guy who was not Bill Winters. Oh my gosh, he's obsessed with scalar waves. He has white hair. He was like in France. Remember this guy? He's an American, but he's like dipped. We had him on like the 100th episode around there, maybe. I can't remember his name now, but he's kind of like a new age scientist, and it's not Rupert Sheldrake.
Oh, I
You know who
know,
I'm talking about?
I
Yeah,
know who you're talking
I
about.
can't think of his name.
I want to say Fire in the Middle. He has this mathematics-based websites. That
Dan
I
Winter.
want to say
Dan
Dan Winter.
Yeah, we had him on the podcast. So what you're kind of saying is like there's a deep mechanic going on in the blood, which might make it profound, even in a material reductionistic sense.
Yeah, or at the very least, you can kind
holographically
of prove
profound.
through the material thing, if you take it seriously, if you look at it honestly, you can tell there is some sort of background connectivity that has little to do with the material 3D we can directly perceive, but it's
Which might
beyond that.
place the importance in all sorts of cultures throughout time. I thought the blood is pretty much important shit. Abrahamic or otherwise, the blood is kind of an important thing.
Can I
Yeah, what
respond
up?
to some of the things that they're writing?
Sure. Where's your battery at? Just so your iPad doesn't just
40%. No,
Oh,
we're good.
yeah.
We're good. And the joint is on its way. We're good. You know, I have the guys in the other room working for me, of
Yeah, it's a
course.
little
Like we're
sweatshop.
at the office here.
Yeah.
So matter contracts in the direction of time, negative fractional alpha series, math, pseudophysics. We had a different energy source than it was crystalline lattice. I would say crystalline, definitely. You know, I totally agree. Emotional and limitless, yes. Crystals in blood. God resides in the sides of the north. North is at the center, right? 666 is not the number of the beast, as in like they're mocking you, because 66 is the number of man. But man that descends from Adama, which is like creation from creation. But this is another topic.
I thought
Like
it had to do with,
maybe another
carbon.
time. But the number of the Forsaken, of the head Forsaken, is 616. So I would invite you to go and look that up chemically. It's all written there, man. It's all in front of your face. It's all about knowing how to read. That's 616. 666 is just man. So at least man as trapped within, you know, the how's it called?
The carbon
tesseract,
housing.
right? The dodecahedron, and like that's architecture in place, you know, from the fallen, you know, like system. And it's like, this is not about wanting to believe in evil. Yeah, this is just like, I got eyes to see. It's like saying, as we were saying with Brother Raphael, you know, like the sun is pretty local. At least this one. Probably outside there's others. Sure. You know,
Galileo
maybe.
got murdered for that shit.
You know? But, you know, like now we're in an age where everybody can just say anything and it could be a joke. And so it's like, whatever.
Well, it's the end of the Pisces age, the beginning of the Aquarian age. So in a sense, it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's a shit show out here. Yeah, it's crazy. We're all fucked, but it'll be okay. Yes, that's the
ultimate. Is Alchemy Saturn tied with Saturn? Yes. So the word Satan doesn't come from a Shaitan as they want you to believe. That's made up too. It is definitely tied up to Saturn. But before, and even before, was tied to Jupiter. You know, it's like when in Rome they go to St. Peter and they kiss his foot. That's like that's Jupiter. That's Jupiter Jovis. You know, that's
Jehovah.
That's Jehovah, the Jovenka. Yeah. Jovenka is like the female bull, right? So it all, it's just all symbology, but also was that a real force and power? I would say yes, sure. Was somebody that was walking the earth at once? I would say so. You know.
Well, even Bashar says Jesus was a real human, and just to not joking.
Yeah, but it's like he wasn't. He was pretty high up in the hierarchy, you know, like, and that's why he was like, I'm the Christ. And it's like somebody's saying like, oh, Dr. Hillman says hi, and it's like, yeah, I'd love to talk to Dr. Hillman. Honestly, like I thought I was one of the only few people to know about this stuff, and I was, you know, I come from a very Catholic place. Already my mom, that she's not Catholic, you know, when I start talking about this stuff, she's like, I think, Miryam, you maybe want to reconsider. And I'm like, you didn't send me to study all of these things for so many years to then tell me that maybe I want to reconsider. I would like to reconsider with people that are actually willing to understand are we still gonna give a crap about these books for like the next legacy on? Because all I care about is legacy. You know, all I care about is like, what are we actually doing? Because right now we're gathering, right? this is like our vortexes are commuting right now, and with these beautiful like listeners and co-creators, right? And it's like this is us sitting like tribalistically, you know, and setting the foundations for the new garden. It's like I'm so ready to like leave everything behind. The issue is
Well, that's what's going to happen astrologically. We're
what
shifting
people
gears.
we are shifting gears, but it's like there's always the sovereign free will. It's like you can't shovel things down anybody's throats, and it's like, do you want and wish for people to like believe lies? It's like no. It's like, and how many people are giving themselves, you know, into the passion and suffering, and it's like, yo, this is not what this life is about. This is not what this experience is about. And it's like there's a time for grieving, and there's a time for like actually understanding that like every instant right now that we're breathing, this is the gift of life, and it should be, and it should be, you know, like honored how it freaking deserves, you know.
So even that statement, how you worded that, is almost like a bodhisattvic sentiment, as opposed to an arhat in a Buddhist sentiment, where it's
You
like,
flatter me, brother Jim.
well, bodhisattvas are cool, and I always dug it. But then I heard a little more about the other side of things, and it's like either we're in a, you know, full-on ignorance pit, and we are woefully ill-equipped, and we're, you know, if any light gets through of truth, good luck. Like we're all just lisping and no one understands what the truth is. That's kind of a bodhisattva thing. It's like, I've seen the light, I'll come back, I'll tell you guys about it on a field trip, and I'll forego my salvation kind of thing. Whereas the arhat is like, everything's in its right place always. So even though this is very uncomfortable right now, I mean, and astrology helps me see that, where it's like,
Right.
of course, if the oven's 350 and the cookies have been in too long, it's burning or whatever. You know, it's like we're in a very interesting point in human evolution, especially given the fact that AI and things like that are happening. Even if we are in spirit and having this material dream and all this stuff, we're having very profoundly new, novel, first time possibly goings-ons happening, and these are, yeah, it's a cosmic trigger kind of thing. I mean, the Mayans, who are not Judeo-Christian in any sense, were like, once we cross over in 2012, the galactic plane, the game changes, and the material, like the Tao is changing, and
Yeah, but you
the
understand,
chessboard
like,
is changing.
Chessboard, that's right. But it's like, I'm from a place where if I were to speak more publicly in Italian about this kind of stuff, which
You'd be
sometimes
killed.
I do, dude, people start calling me strega. Like here you can still persecute people, and like we don't have med houses anymore, but there's the psychiatric, you know, thing, or you could be like just, you know, denunciated, then I don't know, like sued for, yeah,
like,
for like
the equivalent of burning a witch on the pole.
That's right.
Yeah,
And you know, like we're right in the state, you know.
well,
So it's like
Uranus
I
is
can't just go and ask, you know, somebody to like help me translate and understand if like what was my understanding and what is the understanding of Dr. Hillman and so many other people, because it's not just the two of us. There's so many other people that know about this, and there's so many other people that know about, you know, the
have you
verse
tried
by
ChatGPT?
Verse.
I'm kidding, kind of. But
No, man, absolutely not. And
you can
like
always ask these things.
verse by verse, like when sometimes they are like they're calling in and like talking to the Lord, which Lord not specified, right? And word by word is the same summoning of a specific very high hierarchy archon and demon, of the really nasty ones that you don't want to summon. Yeah. And so it's like, and you put this on the mouths, because these spirits, they don't give a fuck about the language that you're uttering Babylonese in, because that's the trick. For you, that's a written language. That's not language. The language is the symbol, and that has a frequency, that has a resonance, and that has a sound, and you know, and so forth. And from there you can transliterate it, because after the Greeks and after the introduction, you know, of the vowels into language, with the agora, with people like coming out of their like hiding place, began to gather together to build this rebuild, you know, this knowledge that was just oral before, you know. Even I don't know, not to go too far, even Gurdjieff, he wasn't writing anything, you know, everything was oral. And I get it. And it's like you needed the vessel to do it, but how easy it is to trick people into black spells and black summoning and black magic under multidimensional repercussions on their lives and the lives that they touch, you know, like without without knowing. And it's like, I know that you doubt it, you say like, oh, maybe there's no evil, but it's like, I've seen evil, and I would say that there is a difference between shadow and evil, and I think it's visible.
Well, intention might be part of it. Ignorance of the shadow is like, I'm unaware of this, versus malicious intent.
I mean, you're a malicious person sometimes, but you wouldn't go and maliciously
I'm
like
malicious?
I would say everybody is a little bit, but you know, I'm just messing with you. But you know, like you wouldn't just like randomly go and grace the thought of like, I'm just gonna go and like, maybe YouTube, I don't know, I don't know if YouTube is gonna censor this, but like just slaughter some like, you know,
angel of death, the firstborn
some
of
youngling, or
cattle.
you know, the firstborn of your house, just like, you know, like Herode did, right? And many others. But it's like, this is the reckoning. And usually reckoning comes by the hand of a tyrant. And I feel that reckoning, it's like you can take the connotations of a tyrant and of a tyrant, yes, tyrant and villain, and still enforce goodness and like the good foundations and, you know, structure for a good thriving legacy for all of us, you know, to be prosperous. And as Raphael was saying, you know, like to have a basic that is same for everybody, and then upon that you can build whatever you wish. What would you like your curtains to be like? You know, whatever, you can dress it however you please, but like a place where everybody's thriving and everybody's like, I would say it's possible to do it. I don't know if there's like too much utopia, but I think
ideal for sure.
It's an ideal, and I feel it's like it's worth a shot, at least, you know, like that everybody's, and this is because it's an inner job. Like we're all doing our inner job, and in your inner job and in your inner sphere and direct sphere of influence, it's like, okay, who is that I would like to be present in my weekly life? I wouldn't say day to day, but you know, and be there for like the upbringing of my children, or like which children of my friends would I wish, you know, to nurture and pour, you know, over them, you know, as they grow up and go along the way. How can I, this is the questions that I ask for myself, you know, like how can I become and be every day more and more that woman that can be also one day, you know, a reference to like younger women, and, or, you know, I would say boys and men should be together more, but also boys, in a way that I didn't have it, you know, and like, and as a community and as a society, like reinstate rites of passage in a more like pedagogy also woven, you know, like kind of way. It's like, how can we really, like, I didn't grow up in the bush, you know, to like go and live in the bush in Australia for 6 months with like the river on my land, and it's like, that's a dream. I didn't have that. I had a really, really fancy apartment, you know, and it's like, how can we seriously use the technology that we have and the intel that it's growing, and, you know, handle it in a way that that is going to help us to commute with nature. Like I'm talking like buildings and you know, like what is that we want to create? Because like this cubic, really like Nazi cold buildings are, I'm not vibing it with it anymore. Yalla, you know, it's
always greener on the other side. The people who live in the mud huts say, I want a penthouse in LA. And the people in the penthouse in LA say, I want to go do ayahuasca on the river. And it's like, oh my gosh, we always want what we aren't, because that is seemingly the exploration of self in a weird way. So yeah, I don't know. We can kind of start wrapping up. I don't know where you're at, Rafael, with this. She's got a lot more battery than I was presupposing she would, but we've hit the 2 hour mark.
But we'll just have you back soon.
Yeah, you're cool. I figured we'd have a good time. Yeah, some of these questions are perennial questions that don't have answers. Quid est veritas, right? It's like, what is truth? What are we? And I do really appreciate when people can kind of go, how would I put it? I'm very good at seeing both sides of the coin, so I can argue for something very readily and then see the equal opposite very readily too. So I'm not really, it's very lukewarm of me, I know, but it seems the middle path is the right way for me, is the best way to put it. It's not yin or yang, it's the line in the middle. So but it's always good to have people who are vibrantly passionate and kind of rooted in their gnosis And I don't think you would call yourself a Gnostic per se, but the flavor of what you're dealing with is way more Gnostic than traditional Catholicism would, ascribe. Or
Well,
whatever.
I mean, we haven't really touched upon it, but I mean, a little bit. I deal more with the real mysteries, like the mysteries are accessible from here, and not from like I don't get you out of your body like that. It's like this is a journey of descent. This is a journey of submission, you should say. Definitely not kinky. I mean, once devotion cracks you open, definitely you can relish in the kink of that. But the real mysteries still remain. And the fact that there were and still are sects like cults that do this, ritualistically using different kinds of pharmacon, it's like, I would say that in ways that could have helped, maybe, but like, this is about purification. Like, let us remember that the human of today is not the human that was created as, the emanation of divinity embodied. We've changed quite a fair bit, like we most of us probably, like connecting today, like for the great part of our makeup, we're probably or mostly very crossbred, and that's, I would say that's normal.
You mean
And
genetically?
yeah,
And intellectually, I would say, worldview
I
wise,
would say
postmodern,
so.
all that.
Yeah.
Melting pot life.
Yeah. And so our consciousness and the openness or fine-tunement of like our true clairs and our true divine gifts, like they might not be as clean, like the what was the name, darker whatever, like the mirror is a bit of opaque. I wanted to quote
We look through the glass dimly, kind of thing.
yeah, kind of. It was like Keanu Reeves did this kind of like pop cartoon animated movie.
Oh, yeah. It's a Philip K. Dick book called Scanner Darkly.
Skin of Darkly, yes.
I got
Thank
you.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Yeah. And so you see it a little bit opaque, but it's like probably the vessels of back then, of people like Jesus or whoever, even before them, like Odysseus or the Argonauts, right? They were probably more clean than what, our starting point was. And this is why purification, it's like you got some start to go, like some way to go before like the alchemical processes are gonna have the minimum like decency required for you to move on the next stage. Yeah, most people, what I've witnessed is like don't finish the stages. Usually they get stopped like between the third and the fourth. Yeah. And so once again, there are things that can purify us, but it's like, I mean, I've done Cambo, for example, several times, but now like looking in hindsight, I'm like, who tells me that poison actually didn't maybe fucked up something for me? I don't know that. Do I know I can fix it without it? Yes.
Who's the
but
first
it's
person
like,
to figure that shit out?
If spirit is superior, how do you call it? Mind over matter.
Primary.
And I do not think, even when you
spirit
spoke
over
earlier,
mind too.
yeah, exactly. And even when you spoke earlier about the dark incantations, which I can totally believe are probably in most, Catholic poems, and even poems also in history, but in Catholic prayers encoded. But wouldn't still the more important thing be what emotion you approach it with, and what your actual what your discernment tells you, and what your intention is? So that's only my understanding. So even if you use a technology just such as Cambo, I would believe it very much affects you in a particular way, just like with ayahuasca and anything else, where you have wildly differing experiences, most likely tied to, of course, the level of toxicity in your body and your mind, but also your intention in terms of where it can move you.
And so exactly. And so now imagine that what they do, like they put things into the food. So the specific kind of purging is aimed to be between specific kind of frequencies rather than others, or like the does it make sense what I'm saying? You know, and then also the bombarding, you know, like with different frequencies, and if you put through people without knowing through processes like this, you know, this is one of the biggest parts. Like this is, and the trick is, well, they willingly chose themselves to buy it and eat it, and you know, they were not forced. And this is how people get in contracts with the devil, you know. You can call her like that if you want to, but you know, she's a handful. Yeah, I mean, it's all about chemistry. It's all about alchemy, and it's all about the different mysteries. And some definitely can bring you somewhere, but they will always teach you through the path of the magician. Whereas there's also the path of the saint available, you know. And this is personally what I chose. Yeah.
What you just said made me think of a Matrix quote, which is like, there are some rules that can be bent, there's some rules that can be broken. And it seems like when we talk about alchemy, kind of nutrition, mind body kind of connections, all these things, not only are we woefully ignorant and culturally kind of cauterized from whatever might be something that our ancestors knew readily, like what you were saying earlier, Aborigines knowing Dreamtime and something like that. It's like we're just cut off from that because we have the convenience of Blockbuster or whatever. Yeah, it's a trip, but I think the moral of the story is everybody needs to, especially given the fact that it's a Queen of Swords card episode. The Sun and Uranus are conjunct today, trining Pluto retrograde, and the Moon is in Aquarius today for this episode. I think really what we all need to do is say, tradition is great. It got us here, just like the DNA in your blood got you here, but you're going to have your own experience in light of that heritage, whether it's knowledge, genetic, alchemical heritage, whatever. You're in the middle of your own little vortex, and you're going to have to figure out how you're interest netting with everybody, but you're going to have to do your own work. And
the one quote I know supposedly related to that card is, "What you are seeking is seeking you."
The Queen of Swords. Yeah, she's got this whole, you know, the owls are not what they seem, right? Like nothing's what it seems. I mean, Jesus Christ, we run around thinking
literally Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah, good tongue twister there. Nothing's exactly what you think, but man, it's like it's a weird trip. I mean, it's like a psychedelic journey at the very least. So enjoy the ride. Is there anything you want? We didn't talk about a lot of things, so we'll definitely have you on again at some point. But is there anything you want to leave us with? We've got your links. I mean, you kind of got I call the show the Scarlet Code because I think that's kind of one of your major things, but I think you're shifting gears somewhat. So kind of tell us what you're up to. And
there's different things.
There's different things.
Yeah.
Well, you're cool. You're my friend. Obviously we put your links in the thing. People should reach out, hit her up. She's cool. Don't inundate her with, you know, fan requests necessarily, but she is cool as fuck. She is my friend, and one day hopefully we meet. I still hope to meet Raphael. I still hope to meet Andreas. Like all these monkeys.
Well, I thought you were coming to Europe this summer. You're not?
Je ne sais pas. I do not know. It's a day-to-day thing.
Whoever is gonna be in Ibiza in Spain this June and July, hit me up.
All right,
let's go party together.
Yeah, well, party on some Scarlet Code juice. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So is that your party sentiment? I'll give you the conch. All you.
My conch. I love it. What do I want to send you off, guys, with? I don't know. I would say never stop having faith. And if you've been struggling, like, you know, this is your message, you know, like I can assure you that what is seeking you, you know, what you're seeking is seeking you. This is so true. This is so true.
Well, I'm glad you say that.
Incredible things are possible for those who believe. And this is just assured. A lot of words in those books, you know, can give hints, but you have to know, like, besides, you know, the reason why those books were brought around, it's like, or not, or how you've been raised is like, keep at it and tend to yourself, tend to your garden, you know, so delicately, and know that you're so taken care of, but like for real. And I know that it's challenging, but we wouldn't want it any other way. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to like seek sometimes for other people to like keep doors open for a little bit for you because maybe you don't have the strength, or like, or sometimes just like ask somebody to walk with you for some time. It's totally fine. Like I'm pretty sure that we're not all like on our individual little like Dragon Ball, you know, sage little planet on our own, because it's more fun. I'm here to have fun. Like, if I went through a freaking Jesuit school from 4 years old, you know, and I forgot to mention ballet, you know, for 12 years, and, you know, another Nazi training. And I know that at least I better have fun every day. Otherwise, something is going wrong. It's like we're navigating through the thick apocalyptic. It's like we're the dinosaurs like coming out of the mud, you know. But dinosaurs, I'm not so sure that we're all real, but this is another topic.
Yeah, but we're definitely coming out of the mud one way or another.
Whatever, you know, there's a lot of things out there and down here. But I would say never, no matter what you're facing, never believe in the lie that is also written in one of those books that says, why have thou forsaken me? A true son or daughter of the Most High would never, because we are never forsaken. That would be going against anything. And so it's like, yeah, that's it. Just keep on kindling, you know, and fanning tenderly like your fires in your gardens.
That could also be inferred as a marijuana pro marijuana symbol.
No, I talk like this all the
joints.
time, by the way. This is not marijuana speaking. Like this is
no,
like,
yeah, she's like this. Trust me.
Yeah.
We've had conversations, and my God, you are a Taurus with a sun with a moon.
I'm so grounded.
Virgo.
It's nuts.
But you are a Leo rising, and all three of us are, so we can play and have fun. And you do have Venus and Gemini conjunct my moon, so it's all we get on. We have fun. In any event, I do appreciate Fangs coming on here.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, dude, it's been a long time coming. Glad we can make it happen. We'll get you back on here at some point. And yeah, if anybody wants to reach out, you got her deets, so holler at her. And Raphael, any last thoughts?
There's nothing to add. Thank you so much, Miryam, for coming on. Thank you, Jim, as always. Thanks, everyone in chat. It was fun to talk to you. The people enjoyed it. So looking forward to next time. And like you said, what you seek is seeking you. Synchronicity abounds. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice.
This is AI.